Welcome to Meet the Artist. This program is brought to you by Hedberg Public Library and JATV Media Services. I'm your host, Teresa Nguyen. Meet the Artist features various local artists whose work will be on display in monthly exhibits at Hedberg Public Library. In the studio today, we have art educator Jon Maglio with the School District of Janesville. Mr. Maglio is the facilitator of our student artists who are featured during the month of March. Welcome to the studio, Jon.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So glad you're here. Let's start with a bit about you. A lot of people know you as Mr. Maglio, and we also got to work together a little bit when I was with the district. So tell us how long you've been teaching art.
So I've been in Janesville district for 23 years. I've done I think 12 years now at Marshall, and I was 8 years at Parker, and 3 years I floated with different age groups, different elementary and middle school, secondary.
Wow, so you've taught
the full range.
The full range of student ages.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
A lot of patience.
It definitely helps grow the patience, for sure. Working on it. So.
Right. So then how did you become involved in this exhibit of student art, which is really cool, by the way?
Yeah. So originally the mall had a big show that we were able to do every year. Okay. And as the mall's kind of, less people go to the mall, it's used for like less of that kind of stuff. We were lucky enough for a couple of years as a district to be able to display our artwork at Bodacious Brew. And so I had a friend that worked there as a manager, and he was able to get us in, and we could do monthly displays.
Awesome.
And that was great until it wasn't as available to us anymore. And then about that exact same time, I was asked to join the committee here at the library for the art committee, and that kind of created a way for us to start showing student artwork here. So
that's fantastic. So is there a judging process, and what is that exactly, and how do they get selected?
So because we pull artwork from all the different schools in the district, there's a very limited amount that we actually get to pick. And so basically, I mean, I have hundreds of pieces of artwork that my students make, and there's standout pieces. And so I just found pieces that I liked, and the other art teacher at Marshall, Annie Marquardt, picked some of her 2D. I do the 3D stuff, she does the 2D stuff. And so we just kind of picked, and this is some of what we came up with.
Awesome. And what is then the range of the grade levels of the artists?
So we'll have K-12. So we'll have, not all the schools will be represented, but the schools that chose to be a part of it, we'll have elementary schools, middle schools, and the high schools will be represented in it.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
The whole city,
yes.
Really. I mean,
citywide.
This is so great. And you probably teach a variety of mediums. So in this particular exhibit, what is the range of mediums? I see we have a variety even here today.
Yeah, so like I said, I do I'm the 3D teacher at Marshall. 6th grade, we teach all of the stuff, but then Annie teaches the 2D stuff. So I have clay work for 3D. I've got some paper mache stuff. We also do metals. We do stuff out of cardboard and paper sculpture and all sorts of stuff for like the 3D. And then she does painting and drawing and digital, like lots of different, 2D kind of stuff. So
right.
Yeah.
The whole gamut.
The whole range.
Yeah. And so a lot of these students, I'm sure you've watched them grow and blossom, especially with their art skills. And so that must feel, what's that like to watch them really achieve success?
Yeah, so I came back to Marshall last year. So I'm kind of starting the process, and I'll get the kids for 3 years, kids that were 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, whatever.
Sure.
But yeah, it's kind of like the kids that I had last year as 6th graders, now as 7th graders, and getting to see, they're maturing in their ability and their artwork, and the fact that they chose to take art. It's an elective as 7th and 8th graders, and so they had that opportunity to choose that. So obviously they're excited about art and they want to make more of it. So yeah, it's fun getting to see what they're progressing with.
Yeah, there's something about that, and you know, students will come to you, I'm sure, and talk to you about their current work, you know, when they've gotten even a little older, and
Right. Yeah.
it's probably fun to watch that.
For sure. Yeah.
That growth. Yeah. So now to get a little philosophical, there's a quote by Pablo Picasso. It's, "Art washes away from the soul the dust of everyday life." And do you agree with that? And can you talk a bit about the value of art for our community?
Yeah, so I think that art is a great way a lot of times for people to, as they become older and they have things that they want to share, that you can't necessarily put words to. A lot of times that's a great way for people to create things, whether it's imagery or sculptures or whatever, that help express. Yeah,
their
right. You can't put words to it, but you can show people kind of like what you're thinking or what you're feeling. Or
like
whatever.
visual words.
Yes, yes.
And as far as the importance of art in the schools, as an educator myself, I strongly support art and music and all these, you know, some people think of them as extras, but talk about that, the importance of art in schools.
Yeah. I think a lot of times people are just, they think of art as just an extra. And it's like, oh, you colored a picture or you made some stuff out of clay or whatever. But they don't think about how, I mean, if we're going to get like scientific about it, the way our brain works, and our brain, it's like a muscle, and we build things up. It doesn't matter if we're working on a math problem or reading a book or making a piece of art, like we're flexing that muscle and we're building.
Or playing a piano.
Yeah, or absolutely, any of the, anything, right? But the arts for sure are doing, or they're building areas of our brains faster, because there's not just a clear answer, so people have to find creative ways to answer a question. How are you going to make this? And like they have to find their own avenues, and that makes you more intelligent. It makes you better at solving problems. It makes you more resilient at failure and like working through problems. And I think that a lot of times we miss that important aspect of art, and we like, you know, schools cut art programs thinking that this is somehow going to help. And an example that I always come back to is California axed their whole art program like a couple decades ago. The result was their test scores dropped, their dropout rates increased. And it was, I mean, they realized after a time that there was a direct correlation between cutting their art programs, and brought it back. And so the U.S. is struggling right now in math and reading scores, and I think a lot of school districts think that then the best thing to do is to axe these other programs, where it might actually be the most beneficial for helping kids become better at those other things by doing stuff like this.
Right, that's a wonderful answer, and you know, it's an aspect of art that we don't think about, because we often think of it, oh, it's very therapeutic and it's really healthy for kids, which it is.
For sure.
It's also, you know, it helps for them to identify and all these things that they need, and to express themselves, like you were talking about earlier. But then there's this whole brain work side of it that is so important. So something to think about if you're ever to get on the school board, or if you're on it. But you brought in some pieces, and let's talk about these. Maybe, you know, we'll start with this beautiful, interesting piece. I love the colors in it, and it's Stonehenge by Malin Koffenberg at Marshall. And she is a 6th grader. I also like the matting, but tell me, so was this a colored pencil?
Yeah. So the assignment is they're working on working in 2 and 3D, or 3 perspective, different perspective,
sure,
like,
I see that.
And so when they get done with drawing out the Stonehenge pieces, they have to look at theories on how Stonehenge might have been created. And so the idea of aliens was what she jumped into. So yeah, they've got the aliens creating.
Very clever.
So
yeah, I really like that. And then on the table here we have some really interesting 3D pieces.
Yeah.
You talk about some of these.
Yeah. So, like this is one that I really liked. I really liked the book Where the Wild Things Are.
Maurice Sendak.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's one of my favorite, and
Fantastic.
like I think that it's such an old book in the grand scheme
Classic.
of things, but it's so good, and the
Classic.
kids, a lot of them know it, like even now, and so I do a project, this paper mache project where they recreate like one of the characters from the story, and this student actually took it a step further and added her own, you know, kind of colorway to it, and took like
Yes.
the design of it, but then made it her own, which was kind of a cool
That is
like way
cool.
of going about it. So
They gnashed their terrible teeth.
Yes.
And you have Max over here as
Yep.
well.
With pink fingernails or claws. So
I
yeah.
love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
And some heavier pieces, it looks like. What are some of the methods
Yeah.
of creating some of these things?
So we've got like hand building.
Okay.
The pant pots. These are like little pairs of pants with little pots or whatever. They use like a hand-built coil pot, and then they do more hand-built elements when they're making like the legs and stuff like that.
Very cool.
And then the like the masks are, we use like a form initially, and then they lay the clay like over it, and then build up the different areas to create, you know, form like the areas around like the mouth or the ears or the, you know, eye areas or whatever. So
Yeah, there's
yeah.
a lot of detail in
Yeah.
them too, and they're able to make some texture.
Yep.
How is that done
yeah,
typically?
so each student is doing a different animal mask, and so they have to, it's one of the criteria is they have to incorporate some sort of texture. So I believe that is a catfish over like on the far side there, and it's got a smoother kind of skin, but they had to go in and create some like individual like little texture and create the wrinkles or whatever to like add that have that criteria met.
Yeah.
Obviously the ones that are furry, you know, they just kind of score in or whatever.
It's
but
very, very like all of them are very lifelike.
yeah, no, they did a great job.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah, excellent work. That's amazing. Well, thanks for bringing in so many pieces
Yeah.
and talking about the process, because it's very interesting. They learn so much
Yeah.
in just like a year's time
For sure.
of school.
Yeah.
So then, as an educator and as a talented artist yourself, it's easy to really spot the students who've got that skill. You know, they're with it, they're creative, they're getting everything very naturally. What kind of advice do you give to a student who might be struggling,
Yeah.
and how do they move forward?
Right.
Right?
So the first day, like I have a slideshow that I go through, and like the two first slides, the first one is art is fun, and like we should just be here to enjoy it. Like there's something
like
fun
that.
about getting involved with things and not comparing to other people, but just like focusing on you, and are you having a good time making a sculpture or playing with clay or whatever. But the other part of it is that you're gonna fail, and like failure is part of everything we do, and it's such an important, I tell them it's not a bad word. Failure is not a bad
Right.
thing, because if you go through repeated failure and you're learning along the way, that's part of the process to mastering something. And so
That's
it's
so
so
true.
important.
That's
Yeah.
so true. And it's like with music. You're
Yeah.
going to play wrong notes
For
or
sure.
sing wrong notes.
Yep.
Or in theater, you're going to forget a line.
Yeah.
But it's part of the growing process
Yep.
of
For sure.
creativity.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that. And keep trying.
Yeah. Just get back on the horse.
All right. So, John, the other day I witnessed, I ran into a couple of former fellow music teachers, and I saw a mom and her son come up to them. And the kid was already a teenager, and they were thanking them for
Yeah.
what the boy had learned and for getting him out on stage and where he is now.
Yeah.
And it was actually at a theater production. And so that feels really rewarding. What is that like? I mean, I'm sure that happens sometimes.
Yeah. Well, it's fun, like, just running, like, every trip to Woodman's is like, who are you going to run into? And, like, I was there last week and ran into several students that were adults now.
Sure.
And they
sure.
both shared with me, like, you know, different experiences, things that they remember doing project-wise, but also, like, we had made a a video for school, and one of the kids had been part of that, and he was
neat.
like pulling back to that and was excited about it. And so it was just, it's fun getting to like reconnect like with kids later on, and like they'll tell me like I'm doing something with the art, or like somehow it's just tying into
That's really cool
my career. Right.
Right, because you've given them the wings with which to fly.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm sure that you were talking about how many hundreds of pieces, you know, that you see throughout the year, and to whittle this down and choose pieces for the exhibit, was that a challenge?
Yeah, like I said, there's always like some standout pieces that just are, you know, just something kind of cool and different, like a kid took a different direction with it, or added a little bit more detail, or just like the way that piece stood out in comparison to like some of the other stuff. So I think, you know, there's a unique style that might come out and it's like, oh yeah, like, you know, I want to share that.
Yeah, so. And you're probably limited to the number, so then I'm sure there were more amazing pieces, but it's a matter of, well, we got to cut off.
Right. I think the library, at least this round, it's something like maybe 70 pieces for the whole district.
Oh, wow.
And so like when you have
that's true.
all these different schools, 12 elementary schools and 2 high schools and 3 middle schools, and every teacher is bringing in stuff, like it just definitely limits you know, how much we can have. But
right, but still 70
and still have a good
70 pieces is pretty
awesome.
Cool.
It's very cool.
Right?
Very cool.
Love that Hedberg is is exhibiting so many different artists, from older artists, maybe people who are members of the Art League, to students.
Yeah.
And
it's a great opportunity for the kids to see the progression of where art can take them.
Right.
For sure.
Are you excited for this?
Yeah, definitely. It's fun hearing back from the kids, like, you know, like, oh, I saw, you know, our artwork or whatever, but then it's also cool talking to adults.
Sure.
Because we have a lot of, I get a lot of feedback from different areas of like our community, and it's fun getting it, like people when they're like, it was so fun getting to see the kids' art, and like so many people really enjoy the shows that we get to put on.
Right.
So again, it's an awesome opportunity.
That's very cool.
Grateful.
Well, thank you for coming in today, Mr. Maglio.
You bet.
And allowing our viewers to get a sneak piece of this amazing student art.
Yeah.
And also for helping create the exhibit. We appreciate your work and your commitment and dedication to educating our youth. And it's an important, worthwhile, creative field
I totally
to be a
agree.
part of. All right. We invite the public to come visit the library this month to view the gorgeous art exhibit by the students of the School District of Janesville. Thank you all for joining me today. Please check out this program on JATV Media Services, Spectrum Channel 994. You can also find it on JATV's YouTube channel. Remember, don't wait for another day. Go out and make some wild, whimsical, wonderful art. I'm your host, Teresa Nguyen. I'll see you next time on Meet the Artists.